Om Ajnana Timidandasya Yanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Ganim Yad Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram. So this, we start a new chapter. Srila Prabhupada in the purport goes over the other chapters that were covered, starting with the second chapter. And here we see Arjuna asking a question: which is better, renunciation of work or work in knowledge? So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the two are actually the same thing. But Arjuna is not understanding. Actually, Arjuna understands everything, but he appears to not understand, so that Krishna can speak the Bhagavad Gita and we can benefit from his instructions. Right? Therefore, Krishna wants to elaborate on this point about the difference between renunciation and work in devotion. So first of all, work in, there's a certain class of philosophers that understand that if one devotes his life simply to working hard to get some fruit and then try to enjoy that fruit in the form of sense gratification, then ultimately this is frustrating. Right? So they take to the path of renunciation. However, such persons aren't really complete in their renunciation because they don't understand, they don't have perfect knowledge. Srila Prabhupada explains that they are not having they have a poor fund of knowledge. Right? Their knowledge is not complete. So by reading Bhagavad Gita on a regular basis and discussing that with others, then our knowledge can become very perfect, can become solid understanding, something which we can base our life on and live in a very practical way. Bhagavad Gita is not just theoretical. Bhagavad Gita is meant to be applied in everyday life. Right? So the difference between work, the renunciation of work, and devotional service, there's no difference, because work in devotion is also free from any kind of reaction. Right? The fruitive worker sees the material energy as something that he can manipulate for his enjoyment. Right? And in other words, people, they go to the office, they work, they earn some money, right? And they think that they can spend this money for sense gratification and they'll become happy. That's their idea. But the same work can be done, and that working for sense gratification entangles them more and more in the material world. But you could have the same scenario of someone working, earning money, but not becoming entangled by that work, and that because they don't use the money for sense gratification. They use the money for the service of Krishna, right? For the service of Krishna. There was a devotee, one of the first devotees, his name was Brahmananda, right? And before he was initiated, he was Bruce. So he had just started coming to the 26 Second Avenue in New York, where Srila Prabhupada started this preaching in 1966. And he, most of the persons that were coming to the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, they didn't have a job. They were just, free from any kind of responsibility. But this Bruce, he had a job. He was a social worker, and he worked for the state of New York, and he was earning a salary. But he felt that, okay, I should renounce this, and I should be full-time like the others that are coming to the center. So he approached Srila Prabhupada, and he said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm considering giving up my job. And Srila Prabhupada said, why do you want to do that? And he said, well, then I can be free to, come to the center more. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, you should keep your job and spend the money for Krishna. So he was new and he was thinking, well, how do you spend money for Krishna? So he asked, well, Srila Prabhupada, how do you spend money for Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada told him, you don't have to worry about that. You just give the money to me and I'll spend money for Krishna. I'll show you how to do it. So the idea is that if you engage everything in the service of Krishna, nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchite, then it's liberating, then you're really experiencing liberation. But just to speculate about renunciation and to imagine that you've become renounced from fruitive activities will not last, because as living entities we're bound to have the desire to act, to want to do something, right? And as long as we're trying to do something in relationship to sense gratification, it's binding, right? We become bound up by that. But as soon as we begin to do activities in relationship to Krishna, in relationship to the pleasure of Krishna, then we become liberated. We become free from the reactions of our activities. And we can have so many examples in that regard. Just like we see, we find an apple in the market, right? So you can think, oh, I would like to eat that apple, right? So that's an example of, sense gratification, and by that we become bound up. But you take the same apple, and someone sees the apple and says, I would like to get that apple and offer it to Krishna, right? And offering to Krishna, there's no reaction, there's no karmic reaction to that. Right? But what it does is that thought, even the thought of the apple being offered to Krishna is called devotional service. And that devotional service establishes our relationship with Krishna. And if you do enough devotional service, then one day your relationship with Krishna becomes firmly established. Whereas those who engage in dry mental speculation, they're never really confident about their renunciation. And in fact, even though they may rise up to a very high level as a sannyasi, right? Still we see that because they're not situated in the service of the Lord, they come down to performing regular, mundane, social welfare activities, like opening hospitals or, performing some other charitable work. Because, why? Because the nature of the living entity is to act. We need that interaction of working. But the working should be for Krishna. And then we become progressive in our spiritual journey to establish our relationship with Krishna. So is there any question about that point? Verse number 1. Yeah. Karma yoga actually means service to Krishna. Karma means activities, engaging in activities. And yoga means to link up. Link up with the Supreme, right? So activities that link you up with the Supreme, those are activities of karma yoga. But simultaneously you can call it your karma yoga, or you can call it bhakti yoga, activities of devotion. Gyan. Pardon me?
Bhakti and knowledge. Is it both are same or little different?
They're different. But you can try to acquire knowledge, but you may not get bhakti. But if you try to develop your bhakti, automatically transcendental knowledge will follow. And that's confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha, Jnaniyat Yasham Vairagyam Jnanachayad Ahaitukam. That by performing devotional service to Vasudeva, or Krishna, one automatically acquires detachment and transcendental knowledge. Okay? Any other questions? So let's go to verse number 2. I'll just read it and then we'll read the purport and discuss it a little bit. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sanyasam Karma Yogascha Ne Shreyasa Karav Ubhau Tayos tu Karma Sanyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Purport. Fruitive activities seeking sense gratification are cause for material bondage. As long as one is engaged in activities aimed at improving the standard of bodily comfort, one is sure to transmigrate to different types of bodies, thereby continuing material bondage perpetually. Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 5, verses 4 through 6 confirms this as follows. Nunang pramatta kurute vikarma yad indriya pritiya aprinoti nasaru manye yata atmano yam asan apikleshita asadeha parabhavastavad abhodajato yavan na jigyashita atmatattvam yavat kriyastavad idam manovat karmatmakam yena sarida bandha evam mana karma vasham prayunkte avidya atman yupadhyamanye pritir nayavan mai vasudeva namuchite deha yogena tavat. Purport. This is the translation of those verses from the 5th canto. People are mad after sense gratification, and they do not know that this present body, which is full of miseries, is a result of one's fruitive activities in the past. Although this body is temporary, it's always giving one trouble in many ways. Therefore, to act for sense gratification is not good. One is considered to be a failure in life as long as he makes no inquiry about his real identity. As long as one does not know his real identity, he has to work for fruitive results for sense gratification. And as long as one is engrossed in the consciousness of sense gratification, one has to transmigrate from one body to another. Although the mind may be engrossed in fruitive activities and influenced by ignorance, one must develop a love for devotional service to Vasudeva. Only then can one have the opportunity to get out of the bondage of material existence. sense gratification, right? This is the effort that people in the material are working to obtain, sense gratification. Something they can taste, smell, hear. They want to gratify their senses, right? And they're mad to do that. Pramata. Pramata means almost mad. Mata means mad, pramata means almost mad. They're mad after sense gratification. You know, you see that people early in the morning, they get in the train, in the crowded train, and even though pouring rain, they go to the church gate. They get down from church gate. Then they have to catch another bus to get over to Marine Lines, or what do you call it, that reclamation area. And then they work hard all 8 hours. Then they catch another bus. They come back. They pack into the train. They come home at night, right? And what is the benefit of all this labor? They eat a little bit, watch some TV, have sex, and go to sleep, right? That's it. So this is not what life is actually meant for. There's more to life than this. But people aren't aware. They're not aware. And so, the Bhagavatam here is saying in the 5th canto, Lord Rishabdev is explaining to his 100 sons, headed by Bharat Maharaj, that, you can't be successful in life unless you inquire about Atma Tattvam. Atma means self, or soul, and Tattva means the truth. The truth of the soul, or the truth of the self, is known as Atma Tattvam. So what is Atma Tattvam? You can understand what Atma Tattvam is if you engage in devotional service. Engaging in devotional service begins by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. But there's 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, right? Chanting about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, and remembering Krishna. You know, these 3 are the main ones that one has to perform if one actually wants to be successful in this human form of life. People, they talk about success, but they don't know what it means to be successful. They think that success is measured by how much wealth or how many possessions that you have. But we see that even though persons have so much wealth and so many possessions, still they're not happy. They're not satisfied, right? The fact of the matter is, the more you have and the more you try to possess without having Krishna consciousness, the more dissatisfied you actually become. More dissatisfied you actually, to the point where I was just reading the other day that now in America, one of the biggest problems is abuse of prescription drugs. People go to the doctor with a backache and he gives them some kind of pain reliever. They take the pain reliever and they become addicted to it. So even after the backache's long gone, still they continue taking the pain relievers, because the basis of them is some opium or something like that. So they become addicted, and their health goes, and their wealth goes by this addiction. And people become addicted to so many things. Alcohol, addicted to alcohol, addicted to some other type of intoxication, and all because of their frustration. And what is that frustration? The frustration is that they're yearning, they're seeking happiness, but they're trying to find happiness in some material arrangement. But it never happens. Because the nature of the material world is dukkhalayam. It's a place of suffering. You can't change a place of suffering into a place of enjoyment, right? If the living entity was bound up in this material world wants real enjoyment, then the living entity has to engage in the service of Vasudeva, in the service of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada started this International Society for Krishna Consciousness just to give people an opportunity to learn how to and engage in the service of Krishna. Just by reading these purports of Srila Prabhupada and hearing them and trying to apply them in our lives, that's devotional service. And that will help us to become really successful in this life, spiritually successful. So I'll finish the purport. Therefore, Gyan, or knowledge that one is not this material body but spirit soul, is not sufficient for liberation. You can understand that you're not the body, but it's a theoretical understanding. Besides the theoretical understanding that we're not this body, we need practical application also. There's Gyan and there's Vigyan. Gyan means knowledge, but that's theoretical. Vigyan means practically applying that knowledge in your life. One has to act in the status of spirit soul. Otherwise, there's no escape from material bondage. You may understand I'm not this body, but to be engaged in all types of sense gratification, so what's the value of that knowledge? Right? Your knowledge, Amaya Pritigyan, is stolen away by the illusion. Right? The illusion is that I can be happy by sense gratification. That's the illusion. Now you may have some knowledge that I'm not this body, but if every time an opportunity for sense gratification comes along, one is pulled in that direction, then what's the culmination of your value? What's the value of your knowledge? Right? So there has to be practical application. There has to be Vigyan, and that can come about by devotional service. Action in Krishna consciousness is not, however, action on the fruitive platform. Sometimes people look at the activities of devotees and they see devotees are doing so many activities, right? They may be selling books, are going door to door to make somebody a life member, and they say, well, you know, their activities are the same as my activities, right? They're selling books and I'm selling, you know, India Today magazine. So what's the difference between them and me? Well, the difference is who you're doing it for. The devotee of the Lord works for the pleasure of Krishna. He's not selling India Today magazine, he's selling Back to Godhead magazine. Right? There's a difference. There's a big difference. Anybody who reads India Today, at the end of reading it, what do they do with it? You know, they pitch it in, after a month it becomes old, they need it, right? Throw it in the trash can. But you can read a Back to Godhead magazine from 30 years ago, and it's just as fresh as if it was printed today. Because the knowledge in it is not mundane. It's not mundane news. It's not ordinary activities. It's not what the Bhagavatam calls a pilgrimage for the crows. Look and see what crows like. You know, where do you find crows? Lots of crows. Where there's lots of garbage. So there's probably as many crows as people in this Bombay. Or maybe more crows, I don't know. But the filthy places, the crows hang out in the filthy places, right? They're so intelligent, sometimes they know how to fly and get in the back of the garbage truck while the truck is moving. Then the crows are riding on the garbage truck. Right? That's the literature, you know, mundane literature about society, friendship, love, right? A pilgrimage for the crows. But what about swans? Swans, they like clean places. They like lakes that are filled with lotus flowers, right? So transcendental literature is like that. It never becomes old, it never becomes hackneyed. And when you read it, you feel inspired, you feel uplifted, right? Activities performed in full knowledge strengthen one's advancement in real knowledge. We all know the Ganga, the Ganges River. If you bathe in the Ganges, it's purifying, it's sanctifying, right? There's some people that live nearby the Ganges and they bathe every day in the Ganges. Once I knew this man who lived in Allahabad, and that's the confluence of the Jamuna and the Ganges. So every day he used to go, he had to take a walk, catch a bus, and come to the Ganges, and he would take his bath, say some prayers, and then go back to his house every day, whether it was winter, summer, right? So many people do like that. But if you go to take bath in the Ganges just because you want to take a bath, you'll get one result. You'll be benefited, no doubt. But if you go to the Ganges knowing that the Ganges is flowing from the feet of Lord Vishnu, and it flows on the top of the head of Lord Shiva, and so by bathing in it, I'm becoming free from so many reactions to sinful activities. That's doing a bath in the Ganges with knowledge. So your benefit will be much more. Therefore, activities performed in full knowledge strengthen one's advancement in real knowledge. Without Krishna consciousness, mere renunciation of fruited activities does not actually purify the heart of a conditioned soul. We said that before. The sannyasis, they renounce, right? But because their hearts are not purified, right? Just renouncing fruited activities is not going to purify the heart to the point where one will be steady. One again will come down to perform fruitive activities. As long as the heart is not purified, one has to work on the fruitive platform. So what does that mean? As long as the heart is not completely pure. What does completely pure heart mean? What does it mean to you? Well, that's consciousness. What about what is lying there in the heart that's not pure? Huh? Material desires. Right. Srila Rupa Goswami describes them as papa bij, the desire for committing sinful activities that lies within the heart. So one may have some knowledge and one may be able to renounce fruitive activities, but if these papa bij are still there within the heart, then they'll fructify at some point, or they'll create problems. So that heart has to be purified. As long as the heart, but action in Krishna consciousness automatically helps one escape the result of fruitive action, so that one not descend to the material platform. By performing Krishna conscious activities, one automatically becomes situated in a very firm platform, because you're doing activities that are for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the consciousness and the heart are becoming purified by these activities. Therefore, action in Krishna consciousness is always superior to renunciation, which always entails a risk of falling down. Renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete, as is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.258. Prapanchikataya bhudya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshabi pariyajo vairagyam falgu katyatahe. When persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking them to be material, their renunciation is called incomplete. Right? Well, first of all, the whole concept of renunciation is misconstrued by the speculators. if everything belongs to the Supreme Lord, Ishavashamidam Sarvam, everything belongs to Krishna, nothing belongs, Nirmama, nothing belongs to me, how can I renounce it? Right? Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a 100 rupee note lying on the street. So 3 types of people come along. The first person sees the 100 rupee note and says, oh, lucky me, I got 100 rupees. I'm going to buy me something, right? Another person, that's the fruitive worker, right? Using the energy of the Supreme Lord for his own sense gratification. Then another person comes along, sees the 100 rupee note, and says, I renounce that note. I don't want it. I renounce it. What a knucklehead, it doesn't even belong to you. How are you renouncing it? Right? But this is the dry speculators, the so-called renunciates that are working without true knowledge. Then the third person comes along, sees, oh, someone has lost this 100 rupees. Let me take it and return it back to them. Right? This is the devotee of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord sees the energy of the Supreme Lord and thinks, how can this be engaged in his service? How can I please the Lord by using this energy? Whatever it is. Renunciation is complete when it is in the knowledge that everything in existence belongs to the Lord, and no one should complain proprietorship over anything. One should understand that factually nothing belongs to anyone. Then, where is the question of renunciation? One who knows that everything is Krishna's property is always situated in renunciation. A real renunciate, a real sannyasi, is someone who's ready to serve Krishna 24 hours a day. That's the real renunciate. Since everything belongs to Krishna, everything should be employed in the service of Krishna. The perfect form of action in Krishna consciousness is far better than any amount of artificial renunciation by a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school. Hare Krishna. So are there any questions about that? Yes?
Prabhupada writes in Prabhupada, one has to act in the status of the spirit soul, otherwise they escape from awakening.
Say it again?
One has to act on the status of the spirit soul, otherwise there is no escape from their body.
Yes.
So,
one has to act on the status of spirit soul. If I think that I'm this body, then I'm going to act on the platform of sense gratification. It's unavoidable. If I'm understanding in that I'm the eternal spirit soul, then I can act on the transcendental platform. Brahma Bhuta Prasantatma Na Sochiti Na Kanchiti. Brahma Bhuta, I have to be on the Brahma Bhuta platform, right? So you may ask, well, how do you get on the Brahma Bhuta platform, right? You have to grow a big beard and have a big jetiya and one kamandalu and put on saffron kapra and then you're Brahma Bhuta. Huh? No. Brahma Bhuta means chanting the holy name of Krishna, following the 4 regulative principles, and trying to do something to serve Krishna. The simple person who plants a tulsi plant and in front of the tulsi chants the name of Krishna and offers the leaves to Krishna, that person's on the Brahma Bhuta platform. But the so-called sannyasi who's speaking, impersonalist philosophy and showing renunciation, not on the Brahma Bhuta platform. Is that okay? Yes.
one chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra or performs devotional service. So, one does not come immediately on the platform of so Brahma Bhota Vishnu. Though he has started practicing devotion.
Right. But he can come. He doesn't immediately come, but he comes a lot faster than the dry speculators or the Mayavadis who claim to be one with the Supreme. Why? Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, to those who worship in me in devotion, I give them the understanding by which they come to me. Where someone who's speculating that they're just as good as Krishna and they can become Krishna by their meditation or their renunciation, Om Namo Narayan. They greet each other. Om Namo. They think they just by renouncing the world they've become Narayan. Huh? So, but someone who's trying to surrender, chant Krishna's holy name, trying to serve Krishna, right? Krishna from within their heart, Savasya Chaham Ridi Sanivisto Matas Mritir Jnanamapur. Krishna within their heart gives them the knowledge by which they can come to Him. So yes, in the beginning, we're not situated in perfect knowledge, but as we go on performing devotional service in a regulated way, right, we can become purified, and by that purification, we can understand our relationship with Krishna in a better way. But that requires guidance. We need association so that we can make quick progress. Is that okay?
In third chapter, Krishna says, Karma Indriyani Samyani Yaste Manasasya Indriyatam Gunaratma Nityachayasya. That if you control your working senses, but your mind is dwelling on sense-object, then you are a Nityachaya, dependent. So, how do we know that whether we are practicing devotion service? Because mind is attached to objects, so it is always thinking about it. But somehow we are controlling this working senses for another.
Well, the point is that we don't want to be a pretender, that we externally show that we're engaged in devotional service, but internally our mind is dwelling on objects of the senses. But in the beginning, we don't have an alternative because we're so attached to used to thinking of sense gratification. It's difficult to immediately give it up. But gradually, as we do practical activities of devotional service with the body, perform activities, and we at the same time chant the holy name of Krishna, gradually the condition of the heart becomes purified. And when the heart becomes a little bit purified, then the mind also becomes controlled and subdued by that purification of the heart. See, chanting and devotional service, it affects the heart of the living entity, goes right to the heart of the living entity. It's not like the austerity performed by the impersonalist. The impersonalists, they're very austere, they won't even eat any sweet or anything like that because they're austere, right? But their heart doesn't become purified by that. As much as there is some purification, but it's not as significant as the purification of a devotee who's engaged in devotional service. That's much more significant purification, because Krishna is there helping the devotee by those acts of devotion. Yes.
Like when we are talking about karma yoga, so while performing action, we should always remember Krishna. because He is a Lord Supreme. So why don't we just keep in mind like these are the qualities of Krishna. So I also should have those qualities in me, so that while performing action, I will focus on the qualities of Krishna.
That's a very good idea.
So how will we define Krishna if I have to define Krishna through His qualities? So
Yes, those are all explained. Krishna's qualities are explained in the Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam and other literatures. The qualities of Krishna are explained. Lord Brahma says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarva Karna Karanam. That Krishna is the supreme controller, Parameshwar. We're all Ishwars. We're controlling something, right? Prabhupada says even a poor man is proud of his 1 rupee coin, right? So we're all controlling something, a family, a business, a community, a country, right? Or even a whole planet. But we're not the supreme controller. We're not Parameshwar. And that's Krishna. So that's one of his qualities. Yes, you can certainly meditate on the qualities of Krishna.
So that we can remain in the consciousness while doing also.
That's Krishna consciousness, yeah. But the activities that you're performing, if they're activities for the pleasure of Krishna, that will help you to think of the qualities of Krishna. If you're actually doing things for Krishna. Just like if you see a flower and you think, oh, that flower would look good in Krishna's garland. And you get that flower and you make a garland and you offer it to Krishna. Those type of practical activities in the service of Krishna, they help you think of the qualities of Krishna. Is that okay?
No, the brother had asked the question, if my mind is attached with the object and I'm remembering something, but still my mind is going haywire, so there's no connection between like Karma Yoga and I'm pretending to be, but actually it's not happening.
Right.
Most of people actually.
Right. Well, if you know the saying, if you don't succeed the first time, try again.
That's true.
So like when the child begins to walk, he stands up, tries to take a step, falls down, right? But that's not the end of the story. Picks himself back up and tries again till he can actually walk.
But being in a Krishna consciousness still, it's giving me impression of body. And we are just like, you read it here as like identity. So what is the true identity? I can consider myself, okay, this is me and I, the me who is performing through the body.
Yeah, the body is, so that we can understand, the body is like a car. You get in a car, it takes you somewhere. It's a yantra rudrani maya. Yeah, it's a machine. The body's a machine.
So like
and we're situated in the machine.
Where I'm situated.
The soul is situated in the area of the heart.
But heart get transplant, so the soul doesn't.
Well, it just
in a medical term, you can see.
It just makes the situation suitable for the heart, for the soul to stay within the body. It's not like the body is. It's not like the soul is inside the body, and the soul is identifying with the body as being him, but it's not him. Just like if you get inside of a car, you're thinking that I'm a Maruti car or I'm a BMW car, but actually you're not that. If somebody comes and hit you, you say, oh, you hit me. But you can say, no, I didn't hit you, I hit your car. No, you hit me. Why? Because we identify as being the car. We identify as being the body. And we're situated in the body. It's the Shastra describes that the soul is situated in the area of the heart, and the consciousness of the soul spreads throughout the body.
But energy flows through your eyes. So maybe you're Tika. So soul is sitting in the center of the forehead. Is it? I don't know because I have a confusion. That's why I came here and I discussed you about this. Because the true identity is first of all very much required to become Karma Yogi or Krishna Consciousness or anything which you want to achieve in your life. First you should know yourself, who you are, and then...
Yeah, well that's why I said in the beginning of the lecture that there's two kinds of knowledge. One is Gyan, acquired knowledge, and one is Vigyan, practically understood knowledge. So we can read Bhagavad Gita and Krishna says you're not the body, and that's Gyan. But when you render devotional service, then you realize it. Realization, Vigyan, can come. So, yes, we don't want to be on the bodily platform, but we're not going to get there to that point simply theoretically understanding it. By the practical process of devotional service, which begins by chanting the holy name of Krishna, hearing the holy name of Krishna, and remembering Krishna, we get practical realization that we're not this body.
By chanting and by remembering Krishna, my senses is actually becoming purified.
Yes.
Mouth, ear, eyes.
All the senses, yeah.
All senses becoming purified.
Right.
But what about thinking? My each thought
is also becoming purified.
is energy.
The mind is becoming purified. The thoughts, yes, thoughts are well, they're different platform, but yes, energy, if you want to see it as energy, but the energy can work in a very positive way. And that positive energy is to think of Krishna.
Energy
Right?
can be worked in 4 different ways, like neutral, negative, positive, or transform. Something. Somebody has given you something negative and you just transform. If you have enough divinity in yourself, you can transform their negativity into positivity. So there are 4 types of energy as I have studied. I have a little confusion.
Well, there's more than 4 types of energies. Krishna's energies are multifarious. Krishna has multifarious energies.
So why? Because he is a supreme being.
Well, we have the qualities of Krishna. Krishna is Sat Chit Ananda. He's eternal, he's full of knowledge and full of bliss. And so are we. We are Sat Chit Ananda. We're full of knowledge, we're eternal, we're in a blissful, our original state is bliss. But somehow or another, because we have gotten a material body, and because we identify the material body as ourself, therefore our Sat Chit Ananda nature has become covered over. But Krishna's not covered over, he's never covered over, and he's so much greater in quantity in terms of Sat Chit Ananda. The quality may be the same, but the quantity is very great. Krishna is very, very, we're Anu, we're very small, and Krishna is Vibhu, he's very great, very, astoundingly great, I can say. And that's the difference. But we can understand our sameness as Krishna by understanding our nature as being eternal and full of knowledge and bliss. But how to understand that, and that's why Krishna gives the process. He gives the process of devotional service. And it begins by hearing and chanting and remembering. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Any other questions? Yes.
So you so nicely explained how the one person example given is very near to Ganges.
Oh.
Daily goes and takes bath. And that person getting the benefit compared to the person who knows the knowledge of taking bath in the Ganges.
Yes.
So sometimes we hear the doctor says some medicine Whether we know the knowledge of the tablet or not. If we take it, it will affect. Sometimes Prabhupada gives the example to say about the holy name. Somebody chants his holy name knowingly or unknowingly, this is without knowledge.
It will act. It will act.
So in this particular chapter 1, what Arjuna and Krishna speaking about action and action in Krishna consciousness. So you also give a nice example of Brahmananda Prabhu, how he is also like working like other people, but he is giving to Prabhupada.
Right.
So it has become the devotional service. So
right.
Similarly, how much importance we have to give for the activities or consciousness?
Well, they go side by side. Our, program is situated in such a way that we have activities where we work on our consciousness, and we have practical activities to perform also. So it's like a train running on 2 tracks. We have physical activities to do for the pleasure of Krishna, and we also have activities where we work on our, purifying our consciousness. Like we get up early in the morning, we go take a bath, go to Mangalartik. These are all practical activities. But we go before the deity and we see Radha Rasa Bihari beautifully dressed early in the morning, so our consciousness becomes purified by that activity. Then we sit down, we worship Tulsi, and we sit down and we chant japa together. These are all activities purifying the consciousness, making the consciousness, on the Brahma Bhuta platform, spiritual platform. And of course, the mind is the mind for so many different lifetimes has thought only of sense gratification, and now we're telling the mind, no, you don't think of sense gratification, you think of Krishna. So the mind rebels. Mind will try to drag us here and drag us there, right? Just like, any wild animal, if you try to capture it, it will try to get away, right? So the mind has been so uncontrolled for so many lifetimes. And now all of a sudden we're saying, okay, you come under control. So it's natural that the mind will create some problem, take us here and there. But wherever the mind takes us, if we see that, the mind is taking me off in some wrong direction, Bhakti Yoga means that you bring the mind back to thinking of Krishna. And that's sadhana bhakti. That's, Vaidhi bhakti. To actually perform activities whereby which you bring the mind back under the control of the self. And it's not unusual, it's not something that we should be amazed about, that the mind goes off in some wrong direction, right? Because for so many lifetimes, the mind hasn't for a second been in the right direction. Now, because we're in association of devotees, we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're performing activities of bhakti, we're trying to channelize the mind to go in the right direction.
So as you given the example of car, right?
Yeah.
You consider yourself, your body as a car, right?
Car.
The soul is the driver then?
Yes.
Is the driver always sit in the front?
No, not the driver. He's not the driver. He's the passenger. He's sitting there passively. Yes. The driver is the intelligence. The driver's intelligence. The reins, like if you have a chariot, you have horses, the reins is the mind. It's described in Bhagavad Gita. And the 5 senses are the horses, right? So the mind connected to the 5 senses, the driver is the intelligence, and the rider, the passenger, is the soul. They're all closely related, the mind, the intelligence, and the soul. So by chanting Hare Krishna, which, it's not a material activity, it's a completely spiritual activity. It goes beyond the mind, It goes beyond the intelligence and goes directly to, it affects the soul. It's like feeding the soul.
We are studying here spiritual knowledge. This is scripture, and we study about spirit. Devotion spirit can act through this body so that your life should become better and better, right?
So that we can become successful in life.
Satisfied, contented. Means you don't need to go anywhere. You just complete from within.
Atmarama. Atmarama. Satisfied. Self-satisfied. Yes.
That is called, that's why we study, that's why we love to do the devotions and all. So that my mind gets something which is fixed, which is not going to change. Why do we remember God? Because God is the only person or being who is constant with their virtues, their divinities and everything. That's why we remember Krishna. Right?
Okay.
Still, I'm not getting the correct information or correct understanding from anywhere because I have a question regarding my own self. Who am I? If one question will get answered, everything will be clear.
Well, this same question was asked by Srila Sanatana Goswami to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sanatana Goswami was a great scholar. He knew Sanskrit, he knew Persian, of course Bengali, so many languages he knew. He was a very great scholar. And so he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said, Mahaprabhu, you know, when I go to my town and the people see me, they call me Pandit. Because he knew Sanskrit, he read so many literatures, and he was in the service of the king. He was the king's personal administrator. When the king, Nawab Hussain Shah, was fighting different battles, Sanatana and Rupa Goswami were actually maintaining the whole kingdom. Very powerful administrators in the kingdom. But when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he asked, you know, they call me Pandit. They call me Pandit. But I don't even know who I am. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains to us what is our identity, and that's a very important point that you brought up. Who am I? You know, how can we go further in any direction unless we know who we are?
Yes, because we are just changing our bodies.
If you meet someone on the street and you say, who are you? And he says, well, I don't know who I am.
No, whatever the consciousness I have, physical consciousness, that I'm so and so, my name is so and so, and I live there, my profession, whatever I have, the consciousness I can explain. But beyond that, I don't know. That's why we turn to spirituality.
All of the things that you can explain that you are, in terms of name, family, area, these are all things, like you said, that are going to change. They're not going to be consistent. So Mahaprabhu gives us a clear understanding about what our real identity is. Jiver Sarup Hoy Nitya Krishna Das. The eternal Jiva, the living entity, is Nitya Das. Krishna Nitya Das. He's eternally the servant of Krishna. We are the servant of Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamaya Vangsa Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Angsha. These angsas, they're my eternal parts and parcels. Right? So we are part of Krishna, and as being a part of Krishna, we're meant to serve Krishna. So when we serve Krishna, then we become satisfied, we become happy, we become whole, we become complete, we become content, like you said, when we're serving Krishna. But unless we actually try to serve Krishna, we won't be able to get the experience. You know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? You have to actually taste. You got to try.
Similar way, like I just want you to
If you want to cross the Ganga, you have to practice swimming. You can't just try to cross the Ganga the first time. You could drown, right? So after you've practiced swimming, then you can go the full length.
So that life is all about, you cannot understand through anyone else's experience unless if you explore by yourself.
Well, that's not true. You got to. Somebody has to show you how to swim.
Yeah, that
You mean you can go in there and try to speculate how to swim, but if somebody says no, you kick your feet like this and you go like this, and they show you how to do it, then and that person is a perfect swimmer, like an Olympic swimmer, and shows you how to swim, it's better than you getting in the water and trying to figure it out yourself, isn't it? Huh? So you need guidance. You need guidance. That's why Krishna took the time to speak Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Arjuna was his good friend. It's not like Arjuna needed to hear the Bhagavad Gita, but the whole situation was arranged by Krishna so that Arjuna would be spoken to, so that we would benefit throughout the ages, the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna is guiding us how to become expert swimmers so that we can swim across the ocean of material existence and get to the other side of eternal life and spiritual world.
Soul is sitting here. Can you experience soul? Soul who is actually listening us, but we cannot see.
Yes, you're right. We can't see with our eyes, but we can we experience the soul. We experience the soul through consciousness, just like you experience the fire through heat and light. These are the symptoms of fire: heat and light. If there's heat, if there's light, you know there's fire coming. So in the same way, we understand the soul by the symptom of the soul, and that's consciousness. When we see that someone's conscious, we can understand that the soul is there. If the consciousness is gone, it's the soul has left. It's not there any longer, right? So that's how we understand about the soul. It's through consciousness. And the whole idea of Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna's hearing the words of Krishna to purify his consciousness. And similarly, when we hear the conversation, study the conversation, we're actually worshipping Krishna with our intelligence and purifying our consciousness. So we're going to have these classes every Wednesday. You're welcome to attend. We also have it down in the temple room in Hindi throughout the week also. But in English, here in this room, on Wednesday night, 7:30 to 8:30, and in the temple room, 7:30 to 8:30, throughout the week in Hindi.
But in English only.
Huh? And then morning we have Srimad Bhagavatam class. Which,
I'm talking about the English one, once in a week.
Yeah, once in a week we have English up here in Bhagavad Gita, and every day we have an English class. Well, most days we have an English class in the temple room in the morning between 8, 10, and 9 o'clock in the morning, Srimad Bhagavatam. That's mostly in English, but sometimes it's in Hindi. Right? Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.